From Elon Musk smoking a blunt live to Alex Jones's absurd tinfoil hat conspiracies, here are the 6 times Joe Rogan made celebs uncomfortable on his podcast, starting with Robert Downey Jr. responding to his blackface role. Robert Downey Jr. doesn't hide from his tough days when he was addicted to drugs and went to prison and rehab. He was probably preparing to talk about this experience in his interview with JRE in 2020, but he seemed surprised when asked if his iconic movie Tropic Thunder, a 2008 Hollywood satire in which he played a delusional method actor in blackface, could be made today, now that more people are aware. Downey took a deep breath and said, "Oh, you could do it," trying to break the tension, making Joe Rogan double over in laughter. Downey thought the movie was a bad idea, but he changed his mind later.
Good looking out. Naomi Watts is so fantastic and impossible, by the way.
In his eyes, he got to show everyone how crazy and self-centered artists can be, and what they think they can sometimes do.
I feel that with your experiences that you've had, they're limited in terms of, like...
RDJ also said that the blackface scene in Tropic Thunder was meant to show how wrong it is for entertainment to use blackface, not celebrate. But even so, Downey's comments led to more criticism of the movie on social media, 12 years after it came out.
Dirty secret is I'm not actually all that good.
No, it's not true.
And I'm going to tell you why.
But this is nothing compared to the embarrassment that Eddie Bravo had to face. Remember when he got pancaked over the flat earth theory? Eddie might look like he's had a few too many concussions from all the MMA he's done, but he's been able to use his skills to become a fight instructor, comedian, and podcast host. But one thing he could improve on is his astronomy. Why do you say that? Well, let's go back to when he and Brendan Schaub were guests on an episode of JRE in 2017. During most of the podcast, the three talked about the MMA scene, and when Bravo brought up a few strange ideas of his own, the conversation moved away from MMA and towards science. He said that the moon landings and the shape of the Earth were both lies, and Rogan and Schaub's jaws dropped. But what happened next was more iconic. Rogan made Bravo feel trapped, so he doubled down and made up conspiracy theory after conspiracy theory.
Saying Sammy, right? You were talking about...
Yeah, I had a question for you guys, because again, Brian's a big fan of all that mafia.
Bravo also said that all the governments, or at least most, started working together to control their people because of the globalists. That kind of makes sense. And then he tried to explain what he thought these efforts would lead to. But still, Rogan kept trying to talk sense into Bravo and told him that he has a lot of power and says these things to millions of people, but he doesn't think he's thinking right. Well, thank you, Mr. Rogan. Unfortunately, flat earth believers take a back seat when it comes to climate change deniers. Remember when Candace Owens got heated over climate change? Candace Owens, a conservative activist and leader of the grassroots political group Turning Point USA, has gotten much attention in the United States over the past few years.
We can hardly talk about therapy and the over-therapeutic environment that we live in.
Late in 2022, when she was seen with Kanye West wearing a White Lives Matter t-shirt, the Black Lives Matter movement was angry with the best-selling author. Owens was a guest on JRE in 2018, but Rogan didn't really call her to mock her or anything.
It is attempt to make the election all about race as the Democrats.
Not in my case, Ms. Owens. I'm sorry. Please do not characterize my...
He did something better, though. He put her on the spot when he found out she didn't believe in climate change. She said, "I think climate change is a way to get money from Americans." But after she admitted she didn't read much about the environment.
Risk of sounding like another jaded millennial, I absolutely love social media.
Rogan told her to trust the great number of scientists who believe it. And after showing an article from the respected magazine Scientific American to prove his point, in a less excited voice, Owens called it a random website.
Jump in and talk about when your interview with Joe Rogan started going viral.
Not only was Google triggered.
And said she didn't believe it. Help! Well, at least she stuck to her motives, unlike a certain someone else we can name. You guessed it, it's Jordan Peterson. Psychology professor Jordan Peterson first got a lot of attention in 2016 when he proposed a Canadian government law that protected gender identity. Since then, he has broadened his interest and written 2 best-selling self-help books, 12 Rules for Life and Beyond Order, making him a worldwide intellectual celebrity. Peterson told a story on JRE in January 2022 about how his older daughter and her friends dressed up his son as a fairy princess, which didn't sit well with him. Of course it did. But after Rogan told Peterson about a similar situation with his daughters dressing him in women's clothes, he asked Peterson what had bothered him about his son's behavior.
That I've always wondered about is...
And after a long, awkward pause to think about his answer, Peterson said, "I guess because I hoped that his path to adulthood would be," Rogan cut in, "normal?" To which Peterson replied, "Sure, no problem. Checkmate." Still, it's nothing compared to a certain CEO's time with Rogan on the show. We're talking about when Mark Zuckerberg tried to sneak on to JRE. We are all familiar with Mark Zuckerberg and his sneaky games. But one thing about him is that he doesn't do many interviews. Even when he had to testify in front of Congress, the internet mogul's clumsy accent made it hard to believe that his brain brains made him successful in the first place. But when he went on JRE in August 2022, the social media entrepreneur was in front of a microphone for the first time. He was especially excited to talk about a meta gadget called Stories, smart glasses with Ray-Ban branding. Interestingly, the product had been out for a while before Mark Zuckerberg appeared on JRE, but it has yet to be a big seller. And well, according to Meta's hype site, the glasses, which have a tiny camera, can now record 60 seconds of video, which can be shared on social media. Rogan was worried that the glasses would make it easier to record people, which could make them feel like their privacy was being invaded. But Zuckerberg said that a special light on the frame would let people near the camera know it's working.
I want to talk for a second about low points, because I think people never appreciate how bad they really are.
Rogan asked him to put a piece of tape over the light. Well, that was awkward. But you know what else is awkward? The time that Elon Musk grew nervous after he smoked a blunt. Elon Musk has been a favorite guest of Joe Rogan's for a long time.
Aimed at reducing the power of a centralized government.
Yes, it is.
And that they don't like that.
And if you don't believe me, he's been a guest on JRE 3 times. But Musk's first appearance on JRE in 2018 was the most interesting of all, which was less about what he said and more about what he did. Before Rogan smoked, the two discussed the scientist Neil deGrasse Tyson. Musk asked, "Is that a joint or a cigar?" The host then gave everyone a toke and said it was a joint with tobacco and marijuana. Rogan then encouraged Musk to take a toke out of the blunt. But when Musk hesitated, he asked if it was because of the drop in share prices. After confirming that the substance was legal in that specific location, Musk finally took a drag, and the rest is history embedded in memes.
Now, the possibility of this technology existing that we're talking about, existing in the past.
But the next day could have been better, though. After the podcast premiere, Tesla's shares fell by as much as 9%. And
It's just like a golf cart that just keeps going.
Like a golf cart.
That just keeps going, yeah, absolutely.
And 2 company executives quit immediately. And according to various sources, Musk said that the government gave him drug tests for a year after that. Wouldn't have harmed anyone if he did it without the cameras there. And that's all for the times Rogan made his guests uncomfortable.
Realms of science that sit outside of our understanding. We'll know more tomorrow, in 10 years, in 1,000 years.
Cruising across the Pacific, that would be silly. So you have big shifts.
For the stand-up comedy tonight, eh?
Yeah, I guess, man. Different kind of warm-up, you feel me?
The smoke and we're flowing on stage, and then you brought the schmo back here in the green room, man.
Big time.
Schmo's feeling big time.
This Saturday night, live on pay-per-view. Brendan, it's good to see you again. I like the beard. It's a new look for you.
You know, it's after UFC 121 with Gonzaga. You were there, and they said, who would you want to fight? And I called out the biggest name I could think of.
I'd love to ask you about this, and this is going to be an interesting transition. This
first thing that I should get started doing. So I'm like, all right, well, first try to learn this. And then like, this would just go on for weeks. And I'm committed to doing this well and to starting a new chapter for our product.
Cinema, that somehow Iron Man isn't cinema? It is cinema to me.
Well, I mean, look,